I kind of wrote the whole book before I actually started looking into how to write a book.
Welcome back to the Wax Quill Podcast. Woohoo!
Welcome back, guys. Today I have Andy Hauser, A.K. Hauser, the writer, here with me, and we are going to talk about all the difficult things he has encountered on his writing journey, and I'm really excited. Andy, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Thank you so much. Yeah, well, I'm Andy Hauser. I'm from Denmark, and I started writing a book 3 years ago in English, and it's been an incredible journey so far, and I can't wait to share it with the world.
So you sent me some of the chapters of your book, and I haven't quite finished the first one, but it was riveting. I loved it. I love
Yeah.
how
Oh,
I'm not going to give spoilers, right? But I loved how you put the lore, you explained the world. I usually have a hard time envisioning the world, and a lot of stories
mhm.
have so much, like they just press all these names onto you and all these facts, but it wasn't like
Yeah.
that. You had those like three main, should I say, gods maybe, and
Uh-huh.
you
Yeah.
explained what happened very well and how it was relevant to your character at the time, and it
Yeah.
was just beautiful. It was beautiful.
Well,
I loved
thanks.
it.
Thanks a lot. I worked a lot on this chapter. It's probably the most edited chapter in the book. Maybe I edited it like 30 times to adjust exactly these things that you're talking about, to not
Mhm.
make it overloaded with info dumping and so on. So I'm very happy to hear that.
It's beautiful, beautiful, especially your description of the old man. I don't recall his name, but
Oh
how you
yeah,
described his white chalk legs and how he
yeah,
blended in with the sand. It was so
yeah,
cool. And how he was annoyed with the little girl trying to
yeah.
tell his story.
It's
I
a
loved
sweet
it.
dynamic. Yeah, I'm happy you like
I
it.
loved it. Okay, tell me before we go into the difficulties you've encountered,
Mhm.
or if this is one of the items on your list, how did you come up with your story and what made you want to write it in the first place?
Wow, yeah, good and deep question. So, I mean, I knew I wanted to write something before I knew I wanted to write this story, if that makes sense. I had just quit my job for stress-related reasons, and I was just down in the mental basement, or what you call it.
Mm.
And yeah, I needed to create something that was fully my own because the job I had before was creative, but it was very restricted in what I could do and could not do. So I was fed up with having people tell me what I can't do creatively. And so I started writing a world, thinking that maybe it would become a video game or something else because I was working in the video game industry. And then quickly I just realized that it was just, I mean, I had to write a novel. It's such a no-brainer because it's the best place to start if I want full control over something. Um, and then I just like started writing. I think the first thing that I wrote was a scene which is now in chapter 34 or something. And it's very like depressive mood in that scene with a guy who wakes up and finds himself uh, possessed by a shadow spirit. Um, and so yeah, that's very different from what happens in chapter one. It escalates in tone. And I was thinking like this should be the first kind of intro to the world. And then as revisions went on, I realized actually this is not at all where the world starts. This is something else entirely. So yeah, I don't know. I got a bit of track off track there with your question, but
Mhm.
um, that's basically yeah. I just started and realized that hey, this is becoming a book. I should learn how to write a book. How do I write a book?
Gotcha. That's cool. It's cool that you say that because the I'm kind of juggling a lot of different things right now. So the school semester I'm in ends next week, and then I'll have a 7 week break. And so I'm thinking, okay, what if I could edit completely this work in progress that I've been just kind of churning through, rewriting the first draft for it over and over. What if I could get that on paper? But I've realized as I'm trying to write this, it starts way before I thought it started. So I'm still rewriting the beginning before we even get to where my original first draft started. So that's kind
Yeah,
of the same. So funny.
yeah, and it's different from many authors, from what I've heard and seen on YouTube and so on. Like some people, they need to write a chapter, like Brandon Sanderson famously writes sometimes a chapter before he actually gets into the book,
Mm.
because the first chapter never really works with him. So I've heard him say in his video thing. And so many people have different like methods of getting into it, you know. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, some people, I've never published a book yet. I'm working on it, but some people will send me a message and say, "Hey, how do you write a book? Like,
Yeah,
what am I supposed to do?" And it's like, "Oh, wow, I don't know how to answer that."
yeah.
There's so many options. I need a flow chart for you.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah. Like, do you know what a sentence is? Sentence is? Yeah, just add a lot of those
just
together,
just
you know.
make lots of
Make
them.
it better.
Just turn them out.
Yeah, just yeah, doesn't matter.
Yeah, for sure. Hmm. Okay. Is there anything else you want to talk about with your book, or shall we begin?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's coming out, if I can mention that, this November. There's no exact date. Um, but I'm doing a big like art exhibition on the 18th of November, where yeah, it's pretty. I don't know why I'm doing it. I mean, I know why, but I don't know how I got to this place because it's such an honor to have 25 artists interpret my book and then read it and uh, yeah, make art based on it, and we're gonna
Wow.
exhibit it in a local gallery. Yeah. It's so I have to finish it, and I kind of planned this exhibition to also give myself a deadline because I know I could keep editing this like for decades probably. And so that's just to say the exact date of the book is not set in stone yet, but it will be about a month before the exhibition, I think. Yeah. And it's called The Cradle of O'Shea.
Oh,
And
okay.
O'Shea is one of those three gods that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. That's amazing that you have an exhibition. I didn't know that was a thing. That sounds incredible. How
Yeah,
did
me
that
neither.
happen?
Yeah, so I was just like at a school, a local art school here, and they had an exhibition interpreting like movies, known movies.
Mm.
And this was 2 years ago. And so on the spot, I just decided that, hey, I want this as well. I want someone to interpret what I'm doing because it's a nice way to kind of crisscross or what you call it, like cross promote between different audiences and mediums, with the visuals and the literary story behind the visuals then in the form of my book.
Mhm.
And so I just got to work on it, and little by little it grew, and I found a place. I applied for some funding, and now it's just happening, and it's crazy. Yeah,
That's fantastic.
yeah,
It seems like everything's starting, the ball is rolling, right?
yeah. The ball is definitely rolling. Yeah, yeah. We'll see if the book is any good though. I mean, it could just be a huge art exhibition, and then the book sucks. I don't know.
Well, at least
We'll
you'll
have.
have good art to go along with it, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
Mm,
exactly.
that's fantastic. So, is this book part of a series?
It is the first in a trilogy.
Mm.
Yeah, and then this trilogy is in the middle of a long saga that I'm kind of dedicating my writing time to.
Mm.
I want to touch on 9 different eras in this saga, and this trilogy is in the fifth era or the fifth age. So this saga, I call it Primordial's Rise.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the trilogy doesn't have a name yet. It has like 1,000 different names, and I have to settle on one before I publish the book. Hopefully, it's a very good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Titles feel so final, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they do.
Hmm. Okay. How do you write your story? Do you write by hand? Do you dictate? Type it on the computer?
Yeah, so actually, I I did most of the writing for the book on my phone, just in a
Oh,
Google Doc. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me, but it's it's nice because I can take a walk and I can like type,
um,
and I can be in my bed like on my side and just type on the
uh-huh.
back, and I can do whatever and just be in the story, you know.
Yeah.
And so when I edit mostly on the computer just to get a different perspective on it, and then I will also like zoom in a lot
Mhm.
to see the words differently and so on. But I do mostly my writing mostly on the phone. Yeah.
Interesting. See, I dictate most of mine, which is why I tell the story once and then I start completely over and I tell it again as the second draft, but it's still not on paper. So me trying to put it on
Interesting.
paper is what I'm going to work on in the next 6 weeks. We'll see if I finish that.
Yeah, I think you're, from what I know about you, I've watched your videos, but you're a very articulate person. So maybe that works for you. But me, I meander and I'm like, what am I gonna say? So if I were to dictate something for myself, I would just be so extremely frustrated with what I was listening to. I think, yeah.
Well, it's see, it's funny. I've seen a lot of things on Instagram or Bookstagram where
Uh-huh.
people are like, "Oh, when they have that reel where it's like, oh, when people say they write their books on Google Docs and it's that like doubting face.
Yeah.
And then when
Uh-huh.
people say they use this other thing and then everyone's happy. I like Google Docs just because you can get it. I have it on my phone, it's on the tablet, it's on the computer. It's always there. I don't know. I don't have a problem with it.
No, it works. And I did use Scrivener, which is a very popular tool, for about half a year. But then I mean, I needed it on the phone,
Mm,
uh, which wasn't possible, at least back then.
mhm,
And so I just never look back. I can open any device and just be inside my story,
mhm.
my Google login. Yeah. And
So,
I do have like separate notes, like just as an ordinary note app on the phone as well for the
oh,
most incoherent like thoughts. And then I will read them and compile them and use them later in the Google Doc.
mhm. Very nice. Okay, let's get started on your list.
Yeah.
Difficult
Right.
things you've encountered on your writing journey.
Right. I mean, it was not very difficult to write the list. um, But let's get into it. So I sorted it into two like main categories. Starting out, or like the past 3 years ish, and then now. So the first problems I encountered when I started out were just realizing like how unskilled I was at writing. Because the first thing I did, I wrote my take on a chapter, just a chapter for the book, and then I uploaded it to some Facebook like beta reading groups and so on, um, and just got absolutely torn to shreds. But there was always like some small like positive remark here and there that kept me going. And I mean, I like to think I would have kept going without the positive affirmations, but I mean, they helped a lot, definitely. Uh, but yeah, the internet is a brutal place when you just put out your writing and say, "Hey, critique me, please." Okay, they will critique you.
Mm,
So it was very difficult to actually learn how quote unquote bad I was, because I had a stronger image of my own writing skills in my head. So little by little, the ego got built up back up again, and as did the writing skills. And I submitted more chapters here and there, different forums. I got some like permanent critique partners, reading each other's books chapter by
mm,
chapter, and so on. And this was the most helpful thing for me, I think, to get the book where it is now. You said you really liked how it was written, and this is because of that process that I was through. I forced myself through. Um, so yeah, that's the first kind of big difficult thing. But I feel like I'm over that place now. I feel like I'm pretty confident where I am, and I'm not gonna feel a whole lot of negative feelings if someone tells me my writing is bad now, because I'm more self-secure in what I'm doing and so on. Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. See, I also did that. I would get good grades in my English classes,
Uh-huh.
and then I wrote things and sent them off, and no one wanted them.
Yeah.
So, what can you do but keep writing, right? So, all right.
Yeah, that's the thing. So actually, I have a question for you. Are you the type of person who will rewrite something like until it works, or do you just move on to something else?
I used to be the kind of person who would work at something over and over until it worked, but now I just don't have the patience for it. And
Oh,
so
okay.
I'll do something, and then if it's just not feeling right, or if it's just not working, I'll be like, you know what, I'll set it aside. I'm going to work on this other thing. And then if I come
Right.
around to getting back to it, then I think that means it's working. But often I just need a break to figure out what's wrong, and then I
Uh,
can fix it, and then it
yeah.
work again.
Yeah. That makes sense. That's very relatable. Um, yeah, I heard Brandon Sanderson again to mention it. He's such a good source for us writers. He wrote like 14 books or something before it worked out for him because he was just like, no, that didn't work. I'm gonna write a new one. And
Mm-hmm.
I like, to me that's insane. I'm the opposite anyway. I'm gonna work and work and work until what I want to do works, you know.
Mm.
And that's at least how I learn. I can't judge whether it's a success or not yet because the book is not out and the reviews are not in. But at least that's how I feel. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. See, I guess I started writing a story. It was a fan fiction. I'll just admit it now. I started with fan
Okay.
fiction. Um, and I started this story, and it was horrible. Like, it was just a mess. I'll never read it aloud ever in my life. And then I thought, you know what? This is so important to me. I'm showing this other side of a villain. I wanted to write his side of things, making him like showing him as the hero after the story because he's still
Oh, okay.
alive. But and then obviously changing things to make it my own story. But it was so dear to my heart, and I was so bad at writing that I thought, okay, he doesn't deserve this. I'm gonna put it aside, and I'm gonna write some other books that I don't care about. And then once I've written those, I'll be a better writer, and then I can come back and actually do it justice. So that's
So
kind of my
interesting.
mentality. I have like two stories
Yeah.
that are dear to me, and they're in notebooks. I wrote them by hand, and they're just in a box right now.
So interesting. I mean, I think that's also the mark of a good writer to know what you can and can't do, and know what's when you have to get back to something that you need to improve beforehand and so on.
I hope so. I hope I'm a good writer.
We all
That's
hope.
part of what this is for.
Yeah.
Okay, number two. Tell me what number two
Number
is.
two. Yeah. So my notes are chaotic. They are like I have sub notes for my notes, and I forgot to include all of the sub notes. But anyway, I kind of wrote the whole book before I actually started looking into how to write a book.
Oh,
And yeah, because it was partly a conscious decision because I was already in a creative field and aware of kind of what my thoughts about art were because writing is art. And I wanted it's weird. It's like I wanted my first book to have this feeling of, oh, he actually doesn't know what he's doing. And that's such an interesting thing. He's not influenced by any advice whatsoever. Uh, but then I got all of the advice. I saw like hundreds and hundreds of YouTube videos and articles, famous authors, and just like upcoming people giving advice and so on. Um, and slowly I started to kind of nitpick what I wanted to use, and I realized how difficult it was to implement them because I started out from such a chaotic place.
mm,
So the book, at least like the first third of the book, is very it's different in a way, and it's very hard to edit as well. It takes twice as long for me to edit because it's more gnarly. It's more like twists in not in like the story, but in the writing, and yeah, it's difficult to explain. So that was a struggle to kind of learn how to write after I write something, and then trying to like force the book into the shape of a story. And I remember one of the first pieces of feedback I got was that my book reads more like a documentary about a fantasy world, not really the story. And so I knew I had to kind of change something because that's not what I wanted.
Add more character stuff.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah, because I wanted to build this world and show people the world, and so the the world is the main character in a way. But then I realized that people don't really relate to a world; they relate to people mostly. Most of us
Mhm.
do anyway. And I had the characters and so on, but I was in, I guess, what's called like this world builders syndrome or disease, where you just you info dump and you don't really take the reader through a journey or story. You just show some pretty pictures, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. So what was the trick that you used to, or what was your focus to correct that?
Oh, it was very incremental. So the book is in the fifth revision stage right now, the fifth and the last before proofreading, which is not a lot. I mean, some people they revise 10 times, 20 times before they publish. Um, but I am very slow and methodical, and I can quickly like learn and adapt and apply a new voice or a new technique somewhere. But it just takes me a long time to actually do the writing and do the work. So it was like just like four different iterations of adjusting how much focus is on the world versus how much is on the character.
Mm.
Um, that slowly just did the trick, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not any one thing in specific, just more like just forcing myself to do it again and again, kind of.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
let's move on. Number 3.
Right. So yeah, so number three is again with feedback, but it's learning how to listen, like when to listen and when to follow my intuition in a way.
Ooh.
Yeah, so this is a very this took some years to kind of uh learn for me in this process. And I think I had a head start because I was in a creative field before where I need like teamwork to make something creative happen.
Mm.
Um, so I was used to this thing of getting feedback, but it still is different when it's your baby. You know, your baby is the most beautiful thing ever, and nothing's wrong with it.
It's perfect.
But yeah, indeed. And it was just difficult to actually gauge, like, okay, one person is saying this, but three people are saying this, but the one person over here is really, really adamant, and the three people didn't really care that much. Is it equal or is it, where is the balance? And I think I found a technique that works for me is that when I'm in doubt about what to do, I just need to listen to myself basically, and that's it. And then I never doubt, and it's not maybe not gonna be the best decision, but it allows me to move on, and then there can be another revision later where maybe this problem gets brought up again, or not. If it does, then I can think again about it, and like I'm more likely to change it. But now a lot of these things are just like I will know exactly what I can use from the feedback I get and what I can't. It's just I'm not really thinking about it. It's just like, oh yeah, oh no, like in and out like that.
Mhm.
um, yeah, that's my third, I think.
Mm. Yeah, that's important. Very important. I'm glad you said that because usually when I can see your answer there. Usually when I'm unsure about something and I share it, I have an expectation for what I want the people to say,
Mhm.
even though I don't always recognize what it is. So
Yeah, yeah.
is that kind of what you mean?
Um, yeah, actually, I'm not sure. Could you can you tell me? Sorry, I just blacked out. Can you
Oh, you're just fine.
rephrase?
So let's see. For example, I have a character.
Yeah.
His name is Gideon.
Uh-huh.
Gideon, some people say, oh, in this scene, he's really flat, very emotionless. And then other people say, wow, he's so stoic and he's so calm. And so I'm showing this scene, and let's say it's a very integral scene. He just found out that his father is dead, and he has to investigate the body to figure out what went wrong. And he's being as stoic as he can be. So I want them to say, oh, yes, he's stoic, he's calm. But at the same time, if my other readers are saying, oh, yeah, he's flat, he's boring, I'm not connecting with him, well, which one do I go with?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's where you just have to kind of trust yourself and know, I think, what it is that you're going for.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I have a character that is a bit like that, who we don't get to know a lot of stuff about him because that's just his culture. He doesn't really like share his thoughts with anyone. Uh, and I'm planning on showing his inner workings more in the second book. So when people say about him that I should like be a more he should be more not open but like easy to read, then I'm disregarding that because I know where he's going and I know he's going to be easier to read later and so on. So it's I think it comes down to knowing exactly what you want with the thing and knowing why the piece of advice isn't super relevant or wouldn't necessarily add to it. But it's crazy difficult, I think, because what you want as an author is just not always the best thing. It can just be a bad habit that you have, you don't know until you really work with it. Um,
It makes sense though that you say you need to make a choice and then just stick with it until you get to the next draft.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah,
For me, anyway,
that
everyone is
makes a lot of
different.
sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
Um. So my fourth struggle is kind of that. It's accepting the choices, even if they aren't optimal. It's like accepting that my pacing isn't on point, accepting that tension is not the main focus of the book, even though tension drives the reader to keep turning the pages. It's just tension is not just it's not always the center of the story, and it's not why I write to give this feeling of tension, even though it is an extremely effective selling tool because faster you read, the more books you buy, and so on.
Surprise! This is the end of part 1. Part 2 will come out next week, and it's going to be great. Don't forget to pre-order AK Hauser's book. The link is below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye!